It is time for MLB Live Before Lock right here on this Friday afternoon. Hopefully everyone's having a great Friday. How you doing, boys?
Been pretty good. Yeah, it's been a nice Friday. Got some football writing done, some baseball writing done. Been rocking out the 90s music all day long, getting my notes ready. So it's been fun.
I haven't gotten anything done today, but it's still been a good day. So.
Nice.
Of course,
I watched part of the Karate Kid Part 2. That was my big thing.
Of course, fellas, we've got a 12-game slate tonight starting here in about 55 minutes from now. We are here to break this one down for you. We're going to talk at the start here with pitching. Then we'll get into stacks, and then we'll answer some listener questions as well. So let's hop right into the top pitchers of the night as we break them down, looking at our top pitch tool. It should note that today's free premium content at Awesemo.com is MLB player projections. So be sure to check out that if you're not one of our premium members. But, looking at the top pitchers, guys, the top 5 guys come up in our top pitchers tool. Tyler Glasnow, not really a surprise there. Chris Paddock, Adrian Hauser, Zach Plesac, and Kyle Hendricks. Spoke a little bit about Glasnow on the strategy show in the early bird last night. 18 strikeouts and 11 2/3 against the Orioles this year. Adrian Hauser coming up a lot for me in terms of obviously a value pitcher on FanDuel, especially when you're looking to get to that Dodger stack, which we will talk about as we go on. Plesac higher priced on FanDuel than he is DraftKings, and then Hendricks with the win situation in Chicago. So Terry, let's start with you, man. What's your kind of take on the top pitchers tonight?
Yeah, so I mean, overall pitching looks kind of like a haves and have-nots kind of thing, and there's a lot more have-nots, maybe a couple guys in that mid-range that we can get to. There's one in particular I'm eyeballing that we'll get to. But at the top, I really think it's all about Glasnow in that spot, and then Plesac probably right behind him in that spot against Detroit. Both of them look terrific. They're both drawing heavy ownership. But Plesac actually Plesac isn't drawing very much ownership. So I like that spot for him on FanDuel. He's second highest probability of success and only going 0.8% owned. So, it's a big price tag to pay for a guy, Zach Plesac, who doesn't really have the name recognition out there in the world. But it's a killer spot for him. So I could definitely get to that. The Tigers are dead last in baseball in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, 28.1%. They got a 161 ISO and an 80 WRC plus, so 20% below average against righties. So that's a really, really good spot for Plesac if nobody's going to it, which I had not noticed earlier in the day. And then Glasnow on the other side against that Orioles lineup. They're 15th with a 177 ISO, 7% below average WRC plus against lefties this year, 22.3% strikeout rate, 7.8% walks. He's just firing on all cylinders, like you said, 37.4% strikeout rate this year. So career high, 14.1 swinging strike. I love the spot for both pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, the ownership is interesting. I mean, he's not like Plesac on DraftKings, 8,500. I mean, he's not projecting to be. I mean, he's projecting to be like a top 4 pitcher, but he's not projecting to be crazy or anything, right? So, I get on FanDuel why people are fading him, but it's not like we're overrun here with studs or like real value. So I don't really mind paying up for him on FanDuel tonight, like at that ownership. I mean, like I agree. Like he's a little bit overpriced, but it's not crazy to the point where, it's a mistake. And I think the biggest thing is, what is the best, is there really like a screaming better value there? I mean, I guess you make a case like Greinke is lower there, so you should play him. But like I just see the pitching tonight being Glasnow is great. I think it's a good spot, but I just don't feel like there's any great studs that you have to play. So I think Plesac is probably my favorite play just from a price per dollar point on DraftKings. Obviously it's a different story on FanDuel. You're kind of playing him because of the low ownership, and you're paying up for low ownership, but that's fine. And I think this is a great slate to do that because I don't think there's a guy out there that necessarily I trust enough that I'm just like, you got to play that guy on a one pitcher slate. So really interesting spot there for him. The matchup against Detroit, like Terry said, could not be better. I will say this, like on DraftKings, this is more of a 2-pitcher thing, I think, but on DraftKings, I like Zach Greinke is I'm kind of down with playing Zach Greinke. I kind of feel like it's a spot where not many people are going to pay up twice because of the Coors Field and stuff like that, and some expensive Dodger bats. And I feel like Greinke might just get overlooked. Like I almost feel like that ownership projection is high too that we have on the site. So I definitely do not mind targeting the Diamondbacks in that game, but maybe a bit of a riskier play because you got to pay up for them. But I kind of like that play in GPPs on the 2-pitcher slate, anyways.
In terms of some value pitchers, is there one that sticks out above all else? Is there, one, maybe one pitcher on DraftKings, one pitcher on FanDuel that sticks out to you in terms of what you would consider a value pitcher?
Oh yeah. For me, this is a night where I'm really not in love with anyone down there. I mean, I think for most people, it's going to be, maybe taking a shot with like Danny Duffy is probably like a big thing, but I mean, there's no one down there other than Duffy that I really feel like offers great, like that really deserves like a huge amount of us talking about. I mean, that's just my feeling. So I think Duffy is interesting. The fact like Milwaukee hasn't been obviously hitting a ton, going up against just like a lineup full of obviously righties. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good enough spot that you should consider him for GPPs. It's obviously it carries a little bit of risk. It's still Danny Duffy, but I'm not really in love with the Hauser play as much. I mean, I understand why people are coming up with him, but I don't know. I don't really. I'd rather go to the other side of that game. A bit more of a ground ball pitcher. I just don't really like targeting KC with pitchers most nights, anyways. I don't know. Maybe Terry has something different on Hauser or a different feeling, but I don't really want a piece of him tonight. I'm not really actually sure what his ownership is either here. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be popular because of that pricing on FanDuel. And then on DK, I think 8K is probably right around what he should be priced at.
Yeah,
but it looks like he's basically
projected ownership. So sorry.
No worries. It looks like he's basically doubling up his probability of being a top 2 starter with that like 14% ownership share that we had on him on my last update. So I don't love the spot based on other people being there. But in general, the Royals 24.4% strikeout against righties, 12th worst in baseball, 157 ISO, 11% below average creating runs. So it is an okay spot. Hauser's generating 10.3% swinging strikes. Gets a pretty good whiff on his fastball that he sets up with his sinker to set up his 4-seamer. He's given up 3 home runs this year that came on just kind of flat sinkers on that pitch, but overall the pitch is pretty effective for him. Just in general, he's pitching pretty well. Gets to 61.4% ground balls and 22.6% soft contact. So he could have a good start here, but I agree. It wasn't really popping off the page for me. And it doesn't look like it is for Alex either. He's only ranked kind of toward the middle of the top pitchers tool, maybe even further down overall on DraftKings. So yeah, I don't love the Hauser spot either. If I'm cheating a little on what we're calling a value play, I would say Max Fried is definitely in play for me. He's 98 on DraftKings, but that puts him below Greinke, puts him below at the same tier as Glasnow, and he's really not getting much attention. Just 3.9% ownership compared to a 12% chance of being in the top 2, and he's just been pitching lights out this year. I mean, he is having like a Cy Young caliber season so far. So we have to kind of take him into account against what is a good Mets offense. The Mets are 5th in baseball with 23 homers against lefties this year, but only 14th with a 182 ISO. But they do have a 125 WRC plus, so 25% better than average created runs against lefties. So it's tricky, and they only strike out 19.4% of the time. So it's going to limit Max's ability maybe to get those strikeouts, but he's just been great. No home runs allowed in 50 innings so far this year, 3.80 xFIP to a 1.98 ERA. So maybe getting a little luck and a little defense factored in, but he's getting 11.5% swinging strikes, right on his career pace, 24.6% overall strikeout rate for his career. Just really like the pitcher, and I like the spot, and nobody's going to it. So that could be a sneaky one.
Let me bring up this question from Jeremiah in the YouTube chat. By the way, if you do have a question, leave them in YouTube, leave them on the premium Slack account. We'll tell you that the premium Slack account questions do take priority. So just mention me on Slack to make sure it gets in there. But Jeremiah says Chris Bassett is the play of the night. Would you agree? Are you buy or selling that?
Jeremiah must know Chris Bassett personally and have gotten some inside info from him. For me, that is not really the play. The Giants are not a team that I, typically rave about, but they've been getting it done. They've been frisky all year. So far, their 188 ISO against righties is 7th in baseball. 23% strikeout rate is middling. It's okay, but they've got a 116 WRC plus in the split. So 16% better than average at creating runs against righties. And I just don't know what Jeremiah might be seeing in Bassett that would be good for fantasy. That would be the biggest thing. Only 8.5% swinging strikes, 4.72 xFIP to a 2.92 ERA. So he's getting lucky overall. My dog doesn't even like it. He's over here barking. 20% strikeout rate for his career. He's not a DFS pitcher for me. I could see him maybe having an okay game, keeping the ball on the ground, limiting power. But yeah, for me, that's not a DFS play. Geoff, do you see anything with Bassett?
I mean, I guess the argument for Bassett is, again, just the way the slate is constructed. Maybe there's not like a ton of high-end pitchers. So maybe it's a play where you're fading the top-end guys. Because, I mean, look, the A's are pretty big favorites here, right? I mean, and again, if nobody else pops off, getting a guy like Bassett, good spot for the win is at 8,100 makes some sense, I guess, from a perspective, you can fit in more of those bats. So I think it is in a way one of those nights, but I'm not really in love with it either. The San Francisco park factor is not as maybe great as it used to be. Bassett's a low K per 9 guy for sure. I mean, it's just not a high upside spot. His last 2 starts probably going to bump up his ownership a little bit, just people casually looking at the scorecard or whatever. But realistically, like his K number's not good. The matchup isn't as good probably as people realize either. So, I would mix him in, I guess. I mean, because I do kind of, I'm kind of torn because it's one of those nights where I don't mind fading some of these top owned pitchers, but at the same time, I don't really want a ton of Chris Bassett either. So, and I mean, projecting to be low owned. I mean, I guess the good thing is, you don't have to have too much of them to be over the field if you like them. So, maybe 10 lineups.
Yeah, I think if we're phrasing it as Chris Bassett is in play as an SP2 that you can mix in tonight, then sure. Yeah. If we're phrasing it as Chris Bassett is the play of the night at pitcher, then
no. That's stretching.
I can't sign off on that.
Yeah.
And by the way, on Yahoo, Chris is $34. Of course, the high end on Yahoo is Plesac at $50, Glasnow $48, Greinke $48. Of course, this show is sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload and edit features when you're looking to play those multiple lineups. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. All you got to do, go to your web browser, just type in Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. It'll take you, you'll see all the contests that are available for tonight's MLB slate. One of the things that we mentioned earlier today on the strategy show that Greg had mentioned was he is not, does not like Rich Hill at all tonight. So let me get who's on your no thanks pitcher list tonight.
Rich Hill, I mean, he's probably like you need him to pitch a perfect game because he's going to pitch like 5 innings, right? So, I mean, the one thing about Rich Hill is like supposedly the wind's blowing in at Wrigley, right? I always am like very cautious about just relying on the wind. I mean, wind reports. I know it's Wrigley and they're usually actually pretty accurate, but still something I'm always skeptical about. It still looks like really good conditions for him. So I guess that's the argument for Rich Hill at 7,600 that, it's a GPP spot. It's pretty thin because you're just relying on basically perfect 4 or 5 innings. Not going to pitch more than that. I think for me, I don't really feel the need to do that. So I guess I would put Rich Hill on my definitely don't touch list. I mean, outside of other obviouses, like Montgomery and just anyone involved in that Boston New York game. But I mean, honestly, I'm just not really. I'm not really looking at most players under like 7K on DraftKings tonight. I don't know. Maybe Terry has a different take, but I'm definitely kind of not looking at the lower end at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you can knock off a good number of the guys on that bottom end. I don't want any part of either pitcher in the Yanks Red Sox game. I'll take a little Montgomery, actually. I should revise that. Montgomery's like a 5%er type guy to me. He's another guy that just kind of gets by on inducing soft contact, limiting hard contact, and he's been stellar at it this year. I don't expect a ton of strikeouts, and I wrote up the Red Sox side of this as a potentially low-owned stack play that we can get to, but I will have a little bit of Monty. Take the Coors game out on as far as pitchers go. I took out Cobb is another one. But for me, the answer to the question, I think the interesting one, is a guy who's getting some ownership, and that's Tyler Mahle for me. I would not roster Tyler Mahle today. Something about that White Sox roster, their pop, their power, their Sixers versus righties this year with 57 homers, 177 ISO, not the greatest ISO in the world, but a 109 WRC plus in the split. 25.3% strikeouts, so there are some strikeouts there for him. But I think that Mahle's just in a little bit over his head here. He's pitching very well in terms of how his pitches are working, how his stuff is working. His strikeout rate is up big time. He's getting 13.8% swinging strikes, which is up from 9.4 last year. And he's done that by completely changing how his fastball functions. He added a ton of spin to his fastball, completely changes how the rest of the pitches play off of it. But he's still kind of bouncing around a little bit with, some of the putting guys on base, and he gives up some power. So I think that the White Sox could get to him. I don't trust him enough that I'm going to roll him out there. And I could see him having a good start here, but he would be my answer to that question to give you guys one that's kind of in play for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I mean, just to Mahle really quickly, I mean, I don't think the White Sox are projecting with a ton of ownership, right? So you can't even make the argument that, we're doing some kind of like a leverage play with him either. So, White Sox, I don't know why you'd want to do that.
It's just not a team I like to attack. I mean, they're clearly one of the best offenses in baseball regardless. So it's just yeah. So when I say I don't want to go to him, I mean, he's in the crunch that I'm about to run, but I've got him capped below what his public ownership is. So that's the best way I can put that.
Let me bring up one final question on pitching, and then we're going to move over to stacks. A couple people have asked about Steven Mott's going for the Mets, 6,400 on DK, 5,900 on FanDuel. Bringing up, is there a strikeout upside? Maybe I would say more DraftKings SP2, but any thoughts on him as an SP2 spot?
I definitely don't like it. I mean, the Braves don't really strike out much. I mean, a lot of right-handed batters as well. Matt's was like, actually, like, I know I talked about a lot of guys down there, but I actually kind of am interested a little bit. I think the Braves could make for like a really low owned stack tonight. One of those ones that just completely go off under the radar here. So maybe not completely under the radar. I mean, they're garnering a little bit of ownership. Well, actually, that's not true. They're garnering under 1%. So I don't have any love for Matt's whatsoever. I think it's actually like a pretty horrible spot for him. So no.
Yeah, for me, I wrote up the Brave side of that one in what is supposed to be my chalky stacks overnight column. And it turns out, I guess nobody out there likes or agrees with me, but they looked explosive to me. Both of my, that's right. I'm sorry. Jeff just said he agreed. So we agreed, but nobody out there in the public is saying it. But yeah, they were explosive to me in my home run model today. I'm getting very good projections on them. And Matt, he's a roller coaster of a pitcher. Matt is 23.4% strikeout, fine, but he's given up 9 home runs in his 24 innings. Last year, he gave up 27 home runs in 160 innings. That's a 1.52 home run per 9. His career home run per 9 to right-handed hitters is 1.61. Like 7 out of the 9 hitters in this lineup are powerful right-handed hitters. He's good against lefties, so Freddie Freeman might not hit a home run, but if everybody else in the lineup does, that Brave stack is going to go off, and Matt is going to have a good game. So I really like the spot for the Braves. People might be off of it because this year specifically, their sample is a little small and it's a little weird looking against lefties. But if you stretch that back for the active roster, so the guys who are on the team now and going to be in the lineup to the start of last year, they're 5th in baseball with a 206 ISO and they've got the 102 WRC plus against lefties. So I don't see what's not to like about these Braves right in this spot. And if nobody's on them, I definitely want to be buying.
I'll bring up one pitching question over from Slack where SJM26B says, favorite SP2 for cash?
That one's all Geoff.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't even play cash really, so I just don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for cash, it'd be Plisic for me. I mean, 8,500. I just wanted to, definitely just looking at the slate and construction and stuff like that. I mean, you're making cash lineups. Plisic, I think this is a night where, again, you can't really go that low for a cash lineup. At least I don't think you should. I think there's enough value spots, for a cash lineup in hitting. I know people are going to want like as much exposure to the bats as possible, but there's just so many, like there's just not enough anything under him. So yeah, for me, it's Plisic for sure for the SP2, and I think you can mix Clash now, or if you really like the spot for Fried, I think that's okay. But but SP1's a different story. There's probably a couple options, but for me, it's Plisic all the way at 8,500. I just think it's a way better upside spot. And I know it's cash, but upside is still a big part of that. And like Hauser maybe in play as well. That'd be about the only other thing. Probably not going to put a Danny Duffy in a cash game lineup. So, but Plisic for sure, like easy SP2.
All right, fellas, let's move over to the stacks for tonight. I guess let's go right into the Dodgers, because the ownership is crazy on the Dodgers tonight, Coors Field. I guess one for this is, if you're a single entry player, can you avoid the Dodgers? And I guess overall, what's your take on the Dodgers stack tonight?
So, I mean, it's tough, right? I never want to say, yeah, take them out of your pool if you're only putting one lineup in. But to me, that's probably the smartest thing that you can do, because it's baseball and it's a huge variance sport. So even though this is a killer opportunity, if you're rolling one lineup, it's not going to help you that much if you're on these Dodgers and they go off, because 40% of the field is going to be right there with you on those bats. So you're not going to be gaining anything in your one lineup. If you're building one, I would much rather shoot for a team like the one we were just talking about with the Braves, where nobody's going to be on. Or even take a look at like the Yankees. They're owned about half of their probability of being the top stack. So if you're only building one lineup, I don't think you should ever go to that top team in the stacks tool unless they are trending under what they should be owned, quote unquote, should be owned. And that's just not the case with the Dodgers today on either side. They're explosively talented. They're drawing a huge probability of success. So it's difficult to recommend that and understand what I'm saying when I'm saying that. There is a very good likelihood they're going to score a ton of points tonight, but it might not be enough to help the one lineup builder. I would have a wide swath of them if I'm going to build 150 lineups, which I am and I will.
Yeah, I pretty much echo that sentiment exactly. I mean, just to give people, a little bit of info. I mean, they're projecting at 36% owned in the Awesemo tool, the ownership stack tool. So, it's probably the highest I've seen on any of these Friday shows, right? And for good reason. I mean, look, we don't even have to talk about the matchup or the pitching. It's the Dodgers and Coors Field, right? They're going to get ownership, so nothing shocking there. And I would even say, I'd be all about fading this game. I mean, Colorado on the other side, yeah, it's a bullpen matchup, but I mean, Alex Wood, and then you have a Dodgers bullpen that's pretty good. Like it's not that good a spot for the Rockies. So I would say I'd be okay fading this game. I mean, I think we already talked about one really low owned stack that we like, but there's definitely a couple other ones that are going to come in at really decent ownerships because of this Dodgers Colorado stuff. So. I think with the Dodgers, if you have a spot, like you have a single spot to fill or something like that, you have a pay up spot, pick your favorite Dodger batter. If you really have someone that you're leaning towards, or you're just like, I got to play one dot, that's fine. But like, I don't think stacking this team in this spot, like Terry said, for a single, you have to just hit the nuts basically. And I mean, you have to do that anyways, but it's so much easier to do with a low stack. So for me, it's maybe like take a piece of a one-off in this game, but I think for a single entry, it's a great spot to fade it. I know it sounds dangerous, and we're obviously telling you to fade like the most explosive game, but it's just a strategy thing. And it definitely makes a ton of sense for single entry lineups.
And look, I mean, as you were talking, Geoff, I was just looking, even looking for a one-off in that Dodger lineup. everybody is over 30% except for two guys. AJ Pollock is 28 and Kevin Lux is 23. Everybody else is going to be 30% owned. I just don't see a play. Seeing that, honestly, I'm considering slashing a little bit more out of the stack ownership that I'm going to have it across my 150 because it's just so popular. I like, despite the Dodgers bullpen, if you want to play Coors, I would say definitely jump on the other side of this one. You're getting it at a third of the ownership or better. So if you want to be in Coors Field, the Rockies have a very good chance of going off as well, and they're not nearly as highly owned. So that would be the spot I would look to here.
Yeah. By the way, we got over 400 people right now in the chat. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. That does help us out a lot. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is up there. Of course, all of our shows are available in podcast form as well on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com for all the links on your favorite podcasting platform that you want to listen to us on. Now, in terms of a top value stack, can we get your take on the Texas Rangers?
Definitely a decent spot. I mean, Terry, if you want to go first, go for it.
My feedback was basically going to be, definitely a decent spot. I think the three of us could probably hit Jaime Barria pretty well, but the Rangers are just so bad. It's tough to recommend them. 146 ISO this year against righties is 25th in baseball, a 67 WRC plus, 24.7% strikeout rate. It's a bad pitcher, but it's a terrible, terrible team. If Joey Gallo doesn't hit a grand slam, I don't know if they're scoring even against Barria. But I think, I think we could justify it, and I would be on board if that's what Geoff is about to do. So take it, Geoff.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're cheap to the point of like just being, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, but you're paying out, you're taking a chance with a terrible team, obviously. I mean, we don't need to, it's pretty obvious, but I mean, it's almost like they're too cheap tonight to play. I mean, you almost don't need it because, we don't have like super expensive pitching or anything like that. I mean, I definitely like paying up for two expensive pitchers, but if I was going to take a Ranger stack or definitely take a piece of this game, looking at it, I mean, obviously you're going to get Gallo in, probably, Odor isn't even in the lineup tonight. So that's probably a good thing. I mean, in all honesty, and then Calhoun, and then in between, I mean, I guess you could roll Guzman as well, get the lefties in. That's probably what I do. I probably wouldn't go more than 3 deep. That's all you need to do from that game. Get the middle of the order and just take the savings and then load up. It does give you access to like a team like the White Sox or something like that. So I do like the spot. I do feel like this is if you're ever going to do this with the Rangers, I mean, this is as good as it's ever going to get. So I think they're in play. Not like super trusting of it. There's definitely stacks. I mean, we already talked about the Braves. It's one of those things. I mean, if you don't have to go there, probably don't do it. But at the same time, if you need to a little bit of room and you just don't mind eating that variance, I mean, I think it's a pretty high upside spot as far as how it's grading out and obviously the pitcher and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, 2,100 for Willie Calhoun is a broken price, but he's also drawing a ton of ownership. That's your big decision.
That's true, and that's a good point. It's
the one pivot,
not going to get super low ownership on it.
Yeah, I might throw in Anderson Tejada as a potential pivot there. He's a second base shortstop, so I would put him at second. He's 3,000, hitting in a similar spot in the lineup. Also a lefty, decent pedigree kid coming up here, but dicey. Not my favorite spot on the board.
All right, Terry, let's we see the hat, so talk me up on this Yankee stack.
Yankees? No, nobody play the Yankees. They've hit all their home runs for the week. This isn't going to happen. Get off them. The Yanks are killer, man. They've just been absolutely explosive. So I like the spot. I know I've said a couple times that we weren't going to pick on Martin Perez anymore. He's been okay, but no, we're going after him here. He's a journeyman guy. He's a lefty. He's got a 5.48 xFIP this season. Strikes out just 16.7% of hitters. Even against the Yankees, that's not enough. And he walks 11.8%. So he's going to put guys on base, even against a free swinging team like this. And when guys hit in a lineup, hit the ball out of the yard so frequently, and just have so much power, if you put guys on base, that's going to lead to some bet numbers, and it's going to happen fast. So I really think the Yankees can capitalize here. Active roster is a 207 ISO this year against lefties. If we push the sample back 2 years to the start of 2018, the active roster has a league-leading 236 ISO and a WRC plus 24% above average and 160 home runs, which is second in baseball over the last 2 years against lefties. So we know that this lineup is full of power. Just looking at who's in, who's out today, they've got both Judge and Stanton back in the lineup. They've got Luke Boyd in there. They've got Glaber in there. So the top of the lineup is whole finally. This is one of the few games they've played with both Judge and Stanton in the lineup tonight. And then you get to the back end. The back end plays like most other teams' top end. So I definitely think we can stack the Yankees. I think we can stack them a lot. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a homer. I've made like no money off of their massive outbursts this week because I haven't been rolling as much. But yeah, I love the ownership. The pricing isn't even too bad. I think we can do good things with this team.
I don't like targeting Martin Perez, but it's really hard to make an awesome case to say, oh, this is a complete fade because, obviously he does have control issues. It's not like we're talking about an elite pitcher. It's just the ground ball rate and how good he is at keeping the ball in the yard. Just a really low home run per 9 rate, obviously. It's, I don't know. It's one of those spots where you either have to trust, you just play, it's the Yankees and you don't care about the matchup, or you just trust what, Perez is giving you and saying, this is just not a good enough spot to pay up for the Yankees. And I guess the only other argument I make, I think they're the second chalkiest stack right now projecting in the ownership tools, second or third maybe. Third. Okay. So, they're not overly chalky. It's definitely, I don't really think the ownership is a reason to fade. So I guess it's just, it's how much you believe in just Martin Perez as being a really bad matchup and being bad enough that you want to fade these. I'm personally of the opinion it's just borderline enough for me to not really like the Yankees tonight. I know it sounds stupid, but it probably will make me look stupid in a few hours. But for me, I would rather go to the other side of this game. I'd rather take a shot with the Red Sox.
Of course, when you're looking to get access to our ownership projections and all the premium content we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. Get you access to player projections, ownership projections, the top pitcher tool, the top stack tool, and so much more. Sign up right now, Awesemo.com/join. Also, be sure to hit thumbs up right here on YouTube. That does help us out a lot as well. In terms of some other stacks that we haven't talked about that when I was kind of putting my sheet together a little earlier that were kind of underneath the Dodgers and the Yankees. The Rockies were coming up. They were up there. The Indians, the Padres, which, by the way, Padres are, while they're playing in Petco, they are the road team because of what obviously the situation in Seattle. So Seattle is the home team today. So something to kind of take the note there.
Yeah, it's always interesting, and I'm trying to remember if I put that in my park package or not in my spreadsheet, but it shouldn't matter. Hopefully. So, yeah, I like the spots for the Pods. The 13th in baseball with a 185 ISO against lefties, 104 WRC plus. They strike out 23.3% of the time. It's an interesting spot, though. Kikuchi's been good this year. 17.8% career strikeout rate that he's gotten up to 26.8. That's a gigantic difference from who he used to be to who he is this year. It's from last year to this year. It's only a 1 year sample. And it all came from throwing his cutter, which we've talked about before. The Seattle pitching staff seems very, very big on teaching that pitch and utilizing that pitch. We've seen basically all their starters start using it. He gave up 4 runs his last time out. We talked him up a little bit that day, and he got dinged a little, but he still toughed it out through 6 innings, struck out 5. So it wasn't like a completely tragic start. Only allowed 2 home runs this year in 37 innings. That was 36 and 161 last year. So he's clearly made some changes with his stuff, getting 51.5% ground balls, 11.9% swinging strikes. So this is a kind of a tricky spot. But I think if I had to, gun to my head, hanging over a pit of vipers, I would pick the Padres stack up this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely more on board here for sure. Padres stack. And Kikuchi has been he's definitely a different pitcher, but it's not like he doesn't have control issues. Obviously Seattle's pen could come into play here, things like that. So definitely, especially the righties. Targeting Tatis, Mikado. Just basically, Austin Nola. I like those guys. I think it's an okay contrarian stack. It might be more of just a spot where I take like a mini stack and go like a full 5 or something like that. But I think it's definitely in play. I like the low ownership for sure. And I will say this: we didn't really talk about Chris Paddock. We were talking about pitchers. We kind of skipped over him. I definitely I think that, as I know someone asked the cash before. I mean, a Paddock Plesac combo is definitely in play. Obviously a big favorite. He's got some really good. He's got great control, great K9 splits and stuff like that. So, and obviously he's going up against the Mariners. So just shout out to Paddock, because I don't think we mentioned him on DK under 9K. I really like that price. And then Padres are going to be one of those almost like the Braves. I mean, I think I like the Braves better, but definitely in play too.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our top stack tool, and this is on DraftKings, looking at that extremely, barely any ownership in terms of a stack. Let me just kind of throw some teams out here and see maybe if there's one that sticks out to you. Kansas City, Minnesota, Oakland, Seattle, Boston, the Mets. Do any of those teams stick out to you as a very low owned stack today that interests you?
So I wrote up the Boston side in Stack Slants. I think they've got a decent shot at getting to Montgomery. I mentioned earlier he's really only getting by on inducing soft contact and limiting hard contact. And the top of that lineup still, I know they've struggled this year, but I'm saying this as a Yankee fan. Monty is not a great pitcher. He's a 4th or 5th starter type of guy. And the Sox are, against lefties, they're not bad. 12th in baseball with 18 home runs this year. The ISO is just 171 overall, but that's not completely tragic. They've got a 108 WRC plus, so they generate runs better than the average. And they've got some capable hitters against lefties. Verdugo this year, 329, 371, 470 slash, leading off with a WRC plus 23% above average against lefties, same-handed matchup. You've got Xander Bogaerts, 265 ISO, 141 WRC plus against lefties going back to the start of last year. JD Martinez, if you go back to the start of last year, the struggling JD Martinez this year. If you add in last year, he's got a 424 ISO and a 212 WRC plus against lefties. That's 112% better than the average at creating runs against lefties. This is JD Martinez we're talking about. I think we can work him in, maybe squeeze a little bit of juice out of that fruit still. So yeah, I think we like him. I think we can get to the Red Sox here. I don't love the back end of the lineup. It falls off a little bit. But you've got like a Christian Vasquez in the middle of that lineup is a very good catcher. And he's going, as last I saw, just pulling it up as I'm talking here, he's going under 1% owned. Catcher who hit 23 home runs and 521 plate appearances next year. So there's some capability in the back end of that lineup as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jackie Bradley Jr., I throw out. I mean, pretty cheap to me as well. So, I mean, I definitely like the Vasquez call. I like the stack too. I mean, I definitely I just like this side. I like attacking Montgomery better than the other side of the plate. Bogaerts, I think, is a great play in this spot. It's just the Red Sox against lefty pitching for me, I think are almost always in play. So pretty much echo just everything Terry just said. Like I said, I definitely like going a little bit, probably like the back end a little bit more with Jackie Bradley Jr. So I feel like you could even go, Vasquez down to JBJ there at 3,400 if you wanted to save some money. You don't have to though, but I think he's in play. So I really like the stack. I do feel like, the Sox probably going to get to Montgomery in this spot. I mean, I'm not, Montgomery's been around for a bit now. There's just nothing that really. It should scare you about stacking against him, especially in this spot. So, definitely should be in play. I'm not even sure what they're projecting as. I thought they might get a little bit of love, but seeing now.
Yeah, they're really not. Yeah, they're down ranked and down in ownership. So it's definitely one of those sneakier spots for sure. That's why it ended up in my my afternoon column looking for the sneaky ones, but. I liked the back end a little bit. You mentioned some of the guys in there. I liked it a little bit better when it had Dahlbeck in it, as opposed to like maybe if it was Dahlbeck instead of doing their wielding double catchers today with Plawecki and Vasquez, which could give you a really weird construction on FanDuel if you put those guys at your flex and your first base catcher, play both of them. That would be really totally unique, and I doubt anybody else does that. Not a great play, but if you want to get weird with it.
Of course, this is the Awesemo.com MLB live before lock show. Will be here till 7:10. The rest of the show is going to be about answering your questions. So fire those right now in Slack, also on YouTube. And also got to let you know our free premium content today over at Awesemo.com is MLB player projections. So be sure to check it out. Also, be sure to give us a thumb up. We got over 400 people in here, only 78 likes. Let's try to get that over 150 here in the next couple of minutes. First up over in Slack, SJM26B says Stanton or Pollock for cash. So I guess we'll go to Geoff for that one since it's a cash question.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, probably, God, Stanton is really cheap tonight. I mean, like ridiculously cheap. And I know I talked about the matchup there, with Martin Perez and stuff like that, but that's a pretty close one. I would, you know what? I'll just stick to my guns and say you should go Pollock. I do like both those guys. The prices on both of them are perfect. So all things considered, though, like I would take the cheap piece of the Coors stack there.
Next up, Jeremiah says, do you guys like an Indians top of the order stack 1 through 5?
That's a softball. Yeah, always. We know that. Is it the right 1 through 5? I don't have it up. I'm just I'm going to get to it here.
Well, it's just the whole pricing, obviously, with the Indians is always kind of thing that we always talk about is, what are you going pitching wise to get that Indian stack?
Yeah, so I mean, looking down, you're not tragic. Like if you do use Cesar Hernandez in there and go straight down through the line with Carlos Santana and Franmil, you can get by on that stack with a decent pair of pitchers, or like a cheapish second stack, and then a pay-up pitcher and a mid-range pitcher. It's not too terrible. The only guys over 5K there are going to be Ramirez and Lindor, who are the stars that we kind of know we want to build in. If you wanted to make it even more different, you could put one of the other outfielders in there, maybe get to a Naquin or a Luplow on the back end, although I prefer it when Naylor's in there. But I think we can do some things with that Indians lineup. The one, the one thing I would say, and they're facing Fulmer, which is he's been the biggest gas can in the league with his return from surgery, which is I just saw my note here. Last time out, he said he thought he had his best pitches of the year in a start where he gave up 9 hits and 5 runs in 2 2/3 innings. That was from MLB.com. So he's given up 4 home runs on his fastball, which lost 3 miles an hour since his surgeries. It's a 486 ISO on the pitch, which is insane. The Indians, 23.4% strikeout rate against righties, and just a 141 ISO would be the one ding against that stack. But I think against this pitcher, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a little bit easier to get to them today too than normal, like you mentioned. I mean, I definitely don't mind using a little bit of back end of the lineup there. It's such a good matchup. I think Naquin is a good way to possibly make it a little bit unique. I mean, he's really cheap, obviously, and I don't think he's going to be anything popular. So going up against Fulmer, definitely in play.
Yeah. Chris says best pitcher for tonight.
Overall?
So from a pure price perspective, it's really close between Plesac and Paddock for me. Probably lean Paddock just from an upside perspective, but it's really close. I mean, you look at the matchup. I think it favors Plesac a little bit, but I think just from the overall, just bigger picture, probably Paddock.
Yeah, I can get behind those two as a call there. And then just in my numbers, looking away from Alex's, I'm getting a good projection on Zach Greinke, who Geoff mentioned earlier, and who's not a pitcher that I usually love to get to because I don't know what he's getting by with other than guile at this point. But despite coming down, he's at an 87-mile-an-hour fastball now. He's lost like 4 miles an hour off his fastball. It completely eliminated the changeup from his repertoire, which we've talked about a few times already this year because it's at the same speed as his changeup used to be. So you can't change speeds when you can't change speeds. But his swinging strike rate hasn't changed. He's still getting a 10.1% swinging strike rate. I do not understand how he's doing it, but he is. And the D-backs, 21% strikeout rate against righties, fine, but they've got a 163 ISO and 86 WRC plus against righties this year. So I think he could have a good start, and I'm getting a good projection on him. So I wouldn't be scared of that spot either.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the matchup. It is why I'm okay with Greinke in this spot, because you're exactly right. I mean, the strikeout rate's down. Obviously he's not the same pitcher he was, so it's not like I'd pay up for Zach Greinke in this, at this price every time he starts or something. I don't want to make people think that, but a lot of it is the spot. I mean, the Diamondbacks. I think we've talked about it, they're just not good, right? And so I think on a slate like this, just how the pitching is rolling out. I mean, I know I talked about a couple guys I like, but it's really more of just a price per the slate kind of thing. I think Greinke is a good GPP play. I think is a guy I look at the slate and I'd say I'd want to be overweight on him in this spot up against the D-backs on a slate where I don't really have like a huge ace that I'm like all about playing. Although I like those guys in the 8K range, I like being a little bit overweight in the field at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
I got a stat question from Bryant. He says, "Is the Brewers? What's your thoughts on the Brewers stack tonight?"
The Brewers, they're actually, I believe, in play. Let me just pull them up real quick so I don't misspeak. Facing a lefty. I know Geoff was on the Danny Duffy train a little bit. I think maybe he was like watching it leave the station and saying, well, maybe I should have taken that. I don't know if he's really on it. The Brewers are bad against righties, but they're actually decent against lefties. This year they've got a 209 ISO and a 114 WRC plus in the split against lefties. They strike out 25.8% of the time, so they're going to need to control themselves a little bit, but they walk 12.7%. So that shows that they do have that ability to be patient at the plate in the split too. So I think you can roll a little bit of Brewers here. I don't think it's going to be the most popular play. Yeah, they're 2.6 right in the middle of the stack tool on DraftKings and only drawing like 3.6% ownership. I'll give that one away. So they're right around where they, quote unquote, should be owned. So I don't have much issue getting to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Duffy is in play for GPP lineups just because there's not much in play under 8K anyways. So that's kind of what I was getting at. The Brewers just as a matchup, I don't think should scare you that much. But at the same time, like Duffy isn't a pitcher where I'm so confident that I'm just going to say, you shouldn't play the Brewers. I mean, I definitely think the Brewers are in play as a stack. This game is a tough one to figure out. I mean, I'm not really in love with either of the pitchers, but I'm not really in love with either of the stacks. I think for the Brewers, I mean, definitely, guys like Jerko, Herrera, those guys are in play. I mean, 100% could knock around Duffy a little bit, but I do have some faith that Duffy is probably going to, bring it a little bit here. Maybe it's a bit of a narrative thing, but I guess I'm just not sure how to approach this game. It's a little bit strange on both sides. I feel like not really interested in Kansas City, but not really interested in the Milwaukee pitcher. Then I've got a little bit of interest in Duffy, and I kind of still admit that like the Brewers, it's a pretty good spot for them for a lot of their righties. So kind of lukewarm on the fence on this one, but I can definitely see the case for the Brewers bats just as well as I can see the case for Duffy. So it's honestly a game where if you told me that you were taking it out of your pool entirely, I'd be like, that makes sense. And if you told me I'm playing like little shares of everything on all sides, both bats and pitchers, I'd be like, that makes sense. Because it's really that kind of a spot for me. So, I could get to a little Duffy. I could even get to a little bit of Royals rolling against the big Hauser shares on FanDuel in a big pool of 150. So, it's minimally in play across the board for me, I would think.
Another stack question we got here is about the Rays taking on the Orioles today.
I was going to write that one up, and I chose to go to the Red Sox instead because the Rays were trending around like level ownership when I wrote it. Still wish I had because I hate endorsing the Red Sox, but I love that spot for the Rays. Alex Cobb, another gas can, a guy who gives up a lot of home runs over the course of his career. This year, just looking at him, only striking out 16% of hitters. And there are just a ton of lefty bats that I really like in that Rays lineup. So I think they could definitely do some damage here just in an overall sense. So, I would go to that, and we'll keep the answer a little short.
Yeah, definitely in on the Rays. I mean, I actually thought they might get a little bit more, projection than we have them listed. But, the lefty guys, I mean, you can go the low and lows. You can go shopping at Lowe's today with Brandon Lowe and Nate Lowe. I mean, you get both lefties in there. I think that's where you'd start. And actually, you can start off with Sugo as well at the top, only 3K. So, I mean, definitely a stat. I mean, really, you can just go up and down the board. I mean, Renfroe as a one-off is fine. It's Alex Cobb. So, Definitely a stack. You should. This is one I 100% want to be overweight on if you're making a bunch of lineups. So it's probably the best way I can put it. I'm just trying to see if I don't think people need any reason to stack against Cobb, but obviously 5.1 implied run total is one of the highest on the slate. They're the Rays are slightly banged up. Adams, yeah. Adams and Renfroe at the back are in play, so you could even just do like a back end play if you want. But I don't really feel like with the Coors thing, you need to get tricky here, man. Like just go with the big part of the order and the lefties for sure.
Makes sense.
Terry, you mentioned about Awesemo. He was actually placed on the DL today. Expect to be back for the postseason.
Damn. Good. I'm glad he'll be healthy for the postseason for you guys.
I don't believe you. Look, you should just hate the Pirates for just handing us Glasnow and Meadows.
Oh my God. It's a great farm system you got there. Like the Royals for my Yankees back in the day.
Cindy says Glasnow in play for FanDuel GPP. Well, yeah, obviously.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, big time. Elizabeth says Braves 1 through 5 stack, or is Freeman not mentioned about no Freeman because going up against a lefty?
Oh no, I didn't mean. Certainly didn't mean no Freddie Freeman. I would never talk somebody off of Freddie Freeman. I can, if I talk fast enough, I might be able to pull up his splits here real quick in Fangraphs. But yeah, Freddie he's an all-star player at first base against anybody. So I really don't care about the split. For his career, Freddie is a 267, 349, 435 hitter against lefties with a 114 ISO. That means he's 14% better at creating runs against left-handed pitching than the average player. Get Freddie in your lineup.
Yeah, realistically, getting Freddie Freeman is going to make it a really unique stack. Not that you need to get unique with more unique than the Braves because they're going to be low owned, but no one's going to play Freddie Freeman tonight because it is a lefty. So.
And people make that mistake a lot, just skipping players for handedness without actually checking the underlying numbers to make sure that it makes sense. It's not a total vacuum, guys. Some guys do handle same-handed pitching very well. And I try and call that out when I read some of these columns about these different spots. So I would have no issues with Freddie there, as much as we love all the others.
You mentioned the word unique, and that leads into the next question from Seth, which is, what is a unique way to stack the Dodgers? I don't know if there's a unique way just looking at what we're seeing ownership-wise, guys.
Yeah. I'm usually pretty good at threading through those things, but like we talked about before, you would have to start with Gavin Lux, who is already 23.3 in my last ownership update. That's just not getting it done. There is not a unique way to stack that team. Pretty much every iteration of this will be owned in as far as who's in the Dodgers lineup. The way to make it unique is get really far afield with what you're doing with pitching in your second stack, but then you're really going to diminish your probability of any of that mattering to your overall score, where people who just play the chalk are going to blaze past you. So it's tough. It is really tough to build something interesting and unique with that team today.
Yeah, there's really no getting around the chalk today. You're just eating it. I mean, you get contrarian with maybe going with like a different, just a couple dudes and then just being contrarian in the other spots. You're not going to get contrarian with anything that you're doing with the Dodgers tonight. I mean, it doesn't mean you shouldn't. It doesn't mean you have to fade them completely if you're making multiple lineups. Even if you're playing a single lineup, it just means take into account the ownership you're taking on the Dodgers and be unique in other spots.
Just under 15 minutes before lock. Of course, be sure to head over to Awesemo.com to check out all of Terry's articles, all the great content we have over there. And, of course, today our free premium content for MLB is MLB player projections. So you got to check out that. We have premium content, free premium content every day. And, of course, if you do want to sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass, $15.95 gets you that. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join to sign up today. Of course, also, you got to check out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the sponsor of this show. In terms of Yahoo, speaking about, let's look at that Gallen and Greinke matchup. They're $48 for Greinke, $44 on Yahoo. I know when we were doing the strategy show, weren't really too high on Zach Gallen. Is that kind of both of your thoughts in this matchup?
Yeah, Gallen doesn't project well for me today. He's a pitcher that overall I think has talent, but the Astros second best in baseball with a 20.5% strikeout rate against righties. 97 WRC plus is only a couple ticks below average. 161 team ISO is lower than I was expecting to see for them. I was expecting that they would hit more power. But overall, it's just not a spot. It's not a team I like to attack. I don't think the strikeouts are going to be there for him today. So he's good. He gets 12% swinging strikes. He's given up 8 home runs in 60 innings, which equals his total in 80 innings from last year. So giving up a little bit more power this year. Striking out a good number of hitters, 27.4%. But again, against this lineup, that's tough to do. So not a spot for me on Gallen. I would go the other way and probably get to some Greinke in the much better matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he's a talented dude. I mean, he's obviously that people like him for various reasons. I mean, the same thing. You look at the stats, and I mean, look, it's small sample, but some of his stats are down this year. I mean, like he hasn't really been that good. I mean, the home run rate is up a bit. His K rate is down a bit, and he's going up against the Astros, which is probably the biggest thing, right? So, is he good enough to like just overcome this matchup for one game? He is. I think he is, anyways. But I don't know. Definitely not a pitcher at all. I mean, we haven't brought him up for a reason because obviously the matchup is terrible. Quite frankly, the price is pretty terrible too, I think, for the matchup. So unless you just feel like being super contrarian, you're a real Zach Gallen fan, or maybe just know something about him that I don't, not really a play that I need to get behind tonight.
Another Zach Gallen's mom out there can play Zach Gallen. We really like it today.
Another stat question we got was about the Kansas City Royals, and particularly 1 through 5. So that'd be Merrifield, Mondesi, Perez, Franco, and Dozier.
So I talked about not liking this game, or just how I feel about this game, and I'm not really high on Dozier, or Hauser. Sorry, why I call him Dozier? Doogie Hauser, Adrian Hauser. So I mean, he's a pretty good. He's a pretty good pitcher. I mean, his one issue is sometimes like control, I guess, but a kind of like a better version of Martin Perez. I mean, he's got a really good ground ball rate. The Royals are just not a team that, like, when I look at this slate, I mean, that I think are going to get me any GPP wins, especially stacking. So it's. I think some factors are in play, like the ballpark maybe factor. People say, well, it's Milwaukee and it's Royals, but I just see this slate, and we've already talked about like 2 or 3 low owned spots, and even the Rays, who aren't going to be that low owned, but they're not going to be anywhere near like super chalk. Just a way better spot. I mean, Coors is going to soak up so much ownership that I don't think you need to get this crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
We had a question about 2 cheap plays: Cameron Maybin or Akiyama.
Wow, 2 guys who were not really on my radar tonight. Let me.
So obviously Akiyama got batting leadoff, and then Cameron Maybin is batting 7th for the Cubbies.
In a vacuum, I think Maybin, just as a better player, probably overall still, Akiyama hasn't really proved much at the major league level since coming over, and Maybin does have something of a track record, but it wasn't really 2 guys that I was really thinking about. I can't even figure out a good way to pull them both up at the same time in my spreadsheet here. Let me see. Let me try and do this and at least put a number on that thing.
I would say Maybin as well. I mean, well. Okay, it's like that stupid wind is now factoring into my decision here. So I feel like Maybin is probably on most nights would just be the better play, but you do have like a kind of a low upside spot now with the wind going out. So maybe you just take Akiyama. He's batting leadoff. The pitching matchup is actually a little bit better. Yeah, I would actually lean Akiyama here for me. That's just me off the cuff.
I tell you what, I'll go with you on that. Based on the spot in the lineup, the lefty righty, and going up against a rookie, and I'm getting a little bit of a better home run projection on him and for the price. So yeah, I'll go with you.
I'll tell you, when I was putting some crunches together before the show, and when I was looking at one-offs, I was coming up more times than not with me, was Avisail Garcia for the Brewers.
Love Avi. Anytime you can get Avi and a lefty righty, I can definitely endorse that one. And we've got one of those today. So yeah, I think that's a spot that can work. He's popular. For a one-off, 13.8% is a little on the high side for me. I usually like to get my one-offs a little bit further afield than that. But I think he's going to he's a guy who's in a spot to have a very good game.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I don't mind taking a small piece of the Brewers. I know I mentioned Danny Duffy a couple times in play, but I really don't. I mean, and definitely starting with Garcia. I mean, Jerko, and you could probably still put with him, but Garcia is probably. I mean, there's a reason why he's a little bit of a chalk. He's probably the best point per dollar play there. So yeah, I like it.
I feel like this is probably a better question for you, Terry, since you're Mr. Home Run guy with the articles you write up there. Seth goes under 3K player on DraftKings, most likely to homer.
Yeah, that's a way better question for you.
So let me see. I do not have the DK pricing on the tab with the home runs at the same time, unless I pull it up team by team. So I'm going to be talking in some generalities here. Adam Duvall, I'm looking at FanDuel pricing, so I'm trying to cross it over. Adam Duvall and Austin Riley, I think, are both relatively inexpensive, but I don't know that they're under 3. That's a tough question for me to answer just with the way that my data is laid out in front of me. Maybe like a Roberto Perez. Is he in the lineup? I don't even know because I don't have that here either. That's a tough question to answer.
I was just pulling up the DK salaries.
I'm trying to find someone I like. I honestly can't.
I can do it the other way around.
I think most likely it's probably someone on the Rangers. I mean, for me, anyways, I'm just not sure who. Maybe Guzman. Maybe just Calhoun. I mean, I would maybe just say Calhoun in the spot. I mean, it's just such a good matchup against.
He's got I mean, that's a price we talked about as a broken price. He's a very good. Great pedigree. So, yeah, I can get behind that for sure. I do get a good home run rating on him. A little bit under 10, which is kind of like the magic number for you've got a good chance versus an average. But, yeah, I can endorse that.
Yeah.
What about Nate Lowe maybe for the Rays?
Ooh, good one. That I like. I could definitely get behind that.
He is under. Oh, that is a good call.
Yeah, he's 2,900.
Yeah, that's a great call, actually.
On DK.
Yeah. I'd probably prefer that a little bit, too, yeah. For some reason, I have him like 39 in my mind, but he's 29. So there you go.
Yeah, that's when you're looking for that cheap spot, sometimes it can be a little tough when you're looking to go there. Of course, we're 5 minutes here before we do hit lock. I was looking at ownership and two guys that are very similar ownership, but they're $1,100 apart. And let's just say it's a one-off: Aaron Judge or Joey Gallo.
Aaron Judge for my money all day long.
I'll be the idiot who takes Joey Gallo.
not a homer pick at all, huh?
Not at all. I think he strikes out a lot, but he strikes out less than Joey Gallo, and he's just got a better overall tool set than Gallo does at the plate, I believe. So I would go that route, and he's backed up by a much better lineup. So if you get the Judge that draws 3 walks in this game, doesn't hit any home runs, he's still got a good shot at scoring a couple runs for you, adding a couple points to it. It won't be your 45-point night on FanDuel that you want out of him, but he might get you, into the high teens, the 20s, just by being on base and scoring runs, whereas the Rangers just have nobody else to drive Gallo in if he draws those walks.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. The walk thing is true. I just like the matchup against Berea. I mean, and I kind of, again, anyone else pitching, I might actually take Judge, but, Perez, the one thing he does well is just keep the ball in the park. It's just, he's terrible, but other than that, he's pretty good at it. So I would still take Gallo here for a one-off for a home run.
I would also say we heard Geoff talk about liking Zach Greinke. His ownership's looking really good on DK when you're looking for a low-owned pitcher.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, we talked about Greinke's, his stuff is kind of getting him through. He doesn't have velocity anymore, but the spot is very, very good, and people aren't really going to him. I think it's a very good spot. I think we can get him in.
Yeah, that's just kind of looking at some various ownerships, something you got to take in there in terms of that. I mean, just looking at the latest ownership projections we got in, I mean, it is
Looks
the
like
Dodger ownership is just insane.
Yeah, the Dodger ownership's crazy. Greinke's look like it's been suppressed a little bit. So people are getting on a couple of those, mid-range guys I mentioned, and it makes perfect sense. Those are still good plays, but Greinke, I think, trending downward a little bit in the ownership projections. I like that even more. So yeah, again, it's just an ownership thing. It's a matchup thing. It's not a long-term you should play Zach Greinke every time he's at 10K, but I think on this slate, it makes sense. So.
Yeah, just looking at for Zach Greinke on FanDuel to where he's at, and maybe I skip over him, but his ownership's even lower on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings.
I actually think he's a little bit better bargain too on FanDuel, but again, it's a one pitcher slate. It's a completely different animal, right? So understand why he'd be super low in there when you only got to take one guy. So.
We mentioned so much about the Dodger stack. What do you guys like on the other side of this with the Rockies?
Partly that nobody's really going to be there for one, and then we mentioned that at the bullpen game with Alex Wood starting. So first off, I think they could do some damage against Wood. They're very, very good against lefties, and we've got some of their big hitters are going to be up in those first two innings. So they could do some damage initially, and then, even the Dodgers pen, it's not like they're invulnerable. So I think we could throw some Rockies bats, and you get the Coors environment, you get much, much less ownership. So I say, that would be my preferred side of the Coors game for sure.
Yeah, I think fading the lefties and just going for like a quick hit on Alex Wood and with like a Story and Arenado, I think that makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, I know I mentioned like it's maybe not as good a spot for the Rockies as people think, just because the Dodgers have a good pen. But Terry's right. Like, I mean, look, it's still Alex Wood for a couple innings, and then who knows how the game will turn out if the Rockies get up quick, right? I mean, they could just start throwing bodies out there or something. So I definitely like the righties. I think that'll be a little bit lesser owned. Maybe you can fade Blackman to be a little bit unique. I don't mind that. And the bottom of the order, I mean, the bottom of the order, the Rockies will still carry some ownership, but it won't be crazy like the Dodgers. So.
With that, fellas, we
updated. Like 5 seconds to spare. I was waiting on the thing to export.
Of course, fellas, we have hit a lock here for tonight's MLB action. Good luck to everyone, whether you're playing on Yahoo or any other slate. Good luck to you. To course, be sure to keep it locked here to Awesemo.com all weekend long. We got you covered for MLB, NBA, all it is. So be sure to keep it locked here at Awesemo.com. So let's go wrap up this edition of the MLB Live Before Lock Show.